try to understand things from our perspective. But this thing of extracting oil, it was our jam. Maybe all the civilizations made it way smarter than us, and we won't find evidence because we just thought differently.
That's an interesting thing, going back to those stories of the flood. If you look at them, they all kind of match up to, so you've got, I think in the Bible with Noah and the flooding of the earth, it talks about the Nephilim, which were like a race of giants. And if you read, because the Bible is kind of like a curated selection of certain ancient texts that specific people thought made a cohesive whole. But there's a bunch of other books that weren't added. So there's like, God, I'm not going to be able to remember them now, but there's one about, I think, Jesus when he's younger. There's one about his mother, like a Psalm of Mary or something like that. There's the Book of Enoch, which was one of the more interesting ones. I think there's a Book of James, which is meant to be Jesus's brother. And I don't know the like how true each of these are, but and you've got the Dead Sea Scrolls as well, which also retold a bunch of those books in different words and stuff like that. But in the Book of Enoch particularly, it had a story about I can't remember the exact name they used from within that, but essentially the devil, Satan, Lucifer, whatever, and him and his 200 followers.
200 followers, more than a lot of people nowadays. God damn.
Subscribe, like and subscribe.
Subscribe to the devil.
And they went down to earth and they found and disobeyed God, and they wanted to go down to earth and have delight in earthly pleasures, I think was some of the words. And they were attracted to the men, the woman of man, which implied that they were a different species, race, whatever. And they lay with the woman, and then they bore children, and these children were giants. And then that was part of the reason for God flooding the earth, was to kill these giants. And they said because once again the men were trying to be above their station. So it's almost like, and it's the same story that you hear about Atlantis. Atlantis got too big for its boots, so it got destroyed in a night and a day. The Tower of Babel, men built a tower to get to the gods, and then gods were like, no, that's no good, so they confused them all with their languages so they couldn't communicate. You have the same story, God, I'm reaching now, I think in the Enuma Elish, which is like a Babylonian creation story, which says men tried to see farther than they could, so they brought the floods and destroyed man to put them back in their place. And it all just seems like men were, like, the idea of that ancient civilization were becoming so technologically advanced that the gods had to put them in check. And then that kind of once again goes into the whole alien thing. So you've got, have you guys heard of Zechariah Sitchin?
No.
So he was like a precursor to Eric von Daniken, who wrote Chariots of the Gods, which was yeah. So Zechariah Sitchin wrote this series. I think it was called like the Earth Chronicles or whatever. But he claimed to have translated these ancient tablets, and he had the story about the Anunaki. It was him, and so and then so there's the idea that there was a master race of aliens or whatever that came here, seeded life here, and then they were, I think his story was, they were trying to, their atmosphere of their planet had been blown away or destroyed to some degree, and so they were trying to mine gold here so they could use the gold to suspend in their atmosphere to reflect the sunlight so their atmosphere could reestablish itself or something like that. I don't know the scientific validity of that. But I think that was the story. And then the aliens who were on Earth, they were working in the mines trying to get the gold. And they were not like grey alien black, they were like us, but bigger, is the consensus. And there was some sort of primitive life on Earth that would have been, Neanderthal or whatever, Cro-Magnon man. and they fused their DNA with whatever primitive species was here to create us, essentially. And then they used us as a slave, which they called the Adamu, which once again I don't know how well he translated it, but he said Adamu, which then matches up with Adam being the first man. There's like these little interesting things.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And they were these slaves in the mines to extract the gold. But then you can extrapolate from there and be like, and then these men might have started getting too big for their boots and creating their own society. And so these were the gods. It wasn't a story of Jehovah bringing a flood because giants were made from demons falling from the sky and mating with women. It was actually aliens who created this hybrid race, and then some of the aliens found the women of them attractive. They mated with them. They were bigger. They did create these giants. And then
all about sex at the end of the day.
And then they created these ancient societies like Atlantis or whatever. And they started becoming too powerful, and the gods were worried about it, so they killed them all and started again.